In late September, I travelled to Switzerland to speak to David Lappartient, president of the UCI, for a feature we were doing on why there are so many deaths in road cycling. That video is now available to watch over on our main GCN channel, but coming up is the full unedited 40-minute interview.
David, firstly, thank you for taking the time to speak to us. Obviously, a very important subject, safety in cycling, but this is specifically about road cycling. So I wanted to be really clear about what the UCI's role is specifically in the safety of riders doing road racing and the UCI sanctioned events.
So first of all, welcome to the UCI. It's our pleasure to welcome you, and very happy to speak. In fact, with your followers. So great to be here and to explain a little bit what is the UCI mission, what is our vision, and what we are doing. Because, of course, when safety is a top priority in the UCI agenda, and unfortunately, the situation is quite challenging for the athletes. Very stressful, and we have a lot of crashes and a lot of injuries. And of course, it puts a lot of pressure on the stakeholders and, of course, on the UCI. Usually on the social media, when there is a crash, it's always a responsibility of the UCI, in fact. But what are we doing really? First of all, we consider that we are on the same boat, athletes, teams, organizers, and the UCI, and we have the common goal. That is to ensure the more safety than what we have today, and this is what we try to do every day. We have the power in the UCI to regulate the sport, and so to take some decisions that are in favor of for maybe a good equal competition, equal access to technology, but of course regulation in order to have more safety. And we are the one to decide what will be the frame of the race with the regulation. We are also the one to decide what will be in fact the equipments, what will be an handlebar, all these kind of things. And we can also have the power to take some sanctions over the organizers, the riders, or the teams in case of wrong behaviors, but we are not only a regulator, also taking some sanctions, but we are also leading in fact the sports family to bring people together and to build in fact safer, like safe road cycling, and then it's to bring all the stakeholders together and said, what can we improve collectively? So there is a kind of leadership. Then it's not directly the power to regulate. It's a power of leadership to aggregate all the stakeholders in the same boat and say, look, guys, that's our common goal. Let's work together. So that's the missions of the UCI.
I think most people watching this will understand it is a complicated sport because of the four key stakeholders that you've just talked about. But am I right in saying that the UCI's primary responsibility then is to create the rules that govern the sport? And then when it comes to a race, it's the organisers' responsibility to correctly implement the rules that you've put in place?
Exactly. You exactly summarize the situation like it is. Our role is just to put the frame, the regulation, and of course the organizer will have the responsibility first to organize the race, and second is also the one liable to organize this race in a perfect way vis-à-vis the public authorities or the UCI itself. So yes, that it's not. We don't transfer the responsibility to organize a race from the organizers to the UCI. It will remain, and it remains the power of the organizer.
Mm-hmm. And so what would happen to a race organizer or a specific race if on one occasion or multiple occasions they do not adhere to the safety regulations that the UCI have imposed upon them?
We started some years ago to challenge more the organizers to follow the different rules, specifications, and so on. And we unfortunately have to take sometimes some decisions whether not to accept some races in the calendar the year after, or sometimes they have a fine with also we provide a safety manager the year after to implement correctly safety at their own cost, but we hire directly ourselves, a supervisor in a way. Or there can be also a relegation from, it happens also, from a Pro Series to Class 1 or from World Tour to, for example, to Pro Series. And sometimes for 1 year, sometimes for 3 years. So yes, we took some decisions like this, and we also had some fine for some of them. But we always tried, first of all, to prevent. The goal is not only to take sanctions if it's not right. It's more to say how can do not to have this or not to have it again. So that's our mission.
In terms of demoting a race in terms of its UCI ranking then, because they have not adhered to the safety rules that the UCI are governed by, does that not then imply that you're saying it's okay for lesser ranked riders to compete in races that have been deemed not safe enough for the highest ranked riders?
I would say, first of all, that for us, safety is a priority, not only for the top riders, but for all the riders worldwide. So, the value of the life of a rider of Class 2 is the same as the rider of World Tour. So we want to have safe races, not only at the highest level, but for all the levels. However, it's true that there is less pressure on Category 2 because you have less vehicles, you have less motorbikes, you have so that the pressure is less important. That's why sometimes we can relegate one race to another category in order also for the race to be compliant with the rules in this new category, and then we will evaluate if this race will have to go back at the level they were before.
Mm-hmm. Moving subject slightly, there's been a lot talked about SAFER over the last 18 months since it was set up officially publicly. Could you just start by explaining exactly what SAFER is and what the relationship between SAFER and the UCI is?
So we took the decision to implement SAFER. The first meeting, in fact, in between the stakeholders was in Nice during the start of the Tour de France in 2020. We had these meetings. So look, guys, that's our collective goal. How we can work together. And in Bilbao, at the start of the Tour de France, we decided to officially launch, in fact, SAFER, because before it was always one party putting pressure on the other party, said it's your responsibility, but it doesn't help to solve the problem. And we were around this table in this room and said, look, guys, it's our collective goal. So instead of trying to throw the hot potatoes, let's work together. And we decided to create SAFER with, in fact, 2 or 3 missions. Of course, the global mission is to improve safety in road cycling, but we had also a management case. In fact, every week there is a meeting of SAFER to debrief about the incidents of the week before, and then do we need to take actions? Do we need to send this to disciplinary commission? Do we need to enter into discussion with the organizers? So this is where we report all the incidents or accidents from the week before. But there is also supervisory board of SAFER. Then we in between the 4 families as always, and then we also discuss taking also lessons from all the cases over the months or weeks before. Okay, what are the challenges and how we can address this properly? And because you can see, I will take the example of the handlebar. Over the last months, the handlebar, they reduced. They moved from 44, 42, 40, and the goal said, look, the mission of the handlebar is to drive the bike. So there is probably a certain limit, and if you put the levers also in a position that will lead to go faster and faster, then we will have more accidents. So. Okay, do we have to take some decision? Yes, and then it will not be SAFER directly. SAFER can make some recommendations, but then SAFER sends some recommendations to the Equipments Commission, or sometimes it can be directly to the UCI Management Committee. So this is also the mission. It's to be a kind of advisory board to say, okay, there is a new challenge. What can we do together? So yeah, that's the mission of SAFER. It's to work on a not daily basis, but weekly basis, very operationally on the cases, but also to have more, the vision of the future. What can we do to improve safety? This is where we also implemented a mandatory training session for the safety manager or mandatory safety manager for the races with an exam here at the UCI. So all this has been also proposed by SAFER.
Yeah, I don't think actually many people have a problem with the thought of a minimum handlebar width, because you're right, steers, etc. I think the problem most people have is that the same rule applies to Søren Varensholt, who's close to 2 meters tall, as it does to Guy Riolini, who's just over 1.50 or whatever. I don't want to concentrate too much on that specific rule. You said we created SAFER. I presume you don't mean the UCI, you're talking about the stakeholders.
When I say we, it's for stakeholders.
Yeah.
It's not because that's really a common goal. Of course, in a way, UCI is leading this because we have also human resources. But however, it's really in the SAFER supervisory board, we have the 4 families, and it's really a common mission.
Is SAFER independent of the UCI?
No, it's not independent of the UCI, and this is a decision we took also collectively. Said, look, it's not like a drug test where you need anti-doping control when it needs to be outside of the UCI. Here, we are working together. So, of course, then if it goes to a disciplinary commission, then it will become an independent commission. But the recommendation of SAFER, SAFER has no legal. It's not a legal entity. It's within, in fact, the UCI, but with all the stakeholders.
Okay. I know it's not been going that long, probably in the background just over 2 years, but publicly 1.5 years, a little bit less. In that time, though, with the data that you've collected, what have been the key findings, and what have you implemented or are you going to implement from the findings that SAFER's got so far?
I think the fences, the barriers, is one of the quick gain we've been through. Also, all the protections for obstacles. Sometimes we move from things that were an option to some mandatory points. And also, maybe the most important is that we can immediately react or anticipate and work together. And in fact, challenge a little bit all the stakeholders, including the organisers regarding this. So, and yes, it's also all the recommendation to the Equipment Commission, all the procedures, as I said, to have a safety manager mandatory for all the organisers. There is, safety as a face in each organization. Before, when you had a safety issue, you said, okay, you go to the organizer, it was maybe with a sponsor and dealing with this, but there was nobody really visible that you can identify. Today, there is one really people in all the organization responsible for this, and it's also the link that we have. So we also, the yellow card, as an example, is clearly a result of SAFER. We said, look, we can always take some disciplinary actions and so on, but to have also the yellow card was also a recommendation from SAFER to the UCI. So then we decided to implement this in the regulation. So that, and I think it helps in a way to have better behavior.
Yeah, no, I saw recently statistics say that less than 50% of the yellow cards have gone to the riders, the rest have gone to people working in the race or the staff.
So it's not because sometimes one of the complaints is, it's always against the rider. Not at all. It's our common goal. So sometimes the behaviors are not wrong behaviors from riders. It could be from drivers, from directeurs sportifs, from various stakeholders, from TV motorbikes themselves, or yes.
And later on this season, you're experimenting with a new rule about maximum gear ratios. Is that a suggestion that came from SAFER?
Yes, that was a suggestion from SAFER. I personally at the time raised some concerns because I was not completely convinced, but it's also the goal of SAFER. It came from the riders themselves, from the CPA, with the support of most of the teams, said, look, we need to try and let's see. So that's why this came from SAFER. And then we'll have an evaluation after the Tour of Guangxi and see if we need to go further, if always more deeply into details, or to have another test or other test before taking any kind of decision. Because what we saw, and that was also the feedback from SAFER, from the riders themselves, is that on a descent, if you have big gears, then you are going faster and faster, because usually they were just not pedaling. Now they are also pedaling. So instead of sometimes 90 km per hour, you will go to 100. And then you can have potentially more crashes, or the consequences can be higher. So it came also from SAFER. So when we are in SAFER, sometimes it's not really, for example, when we had also a test on the radio, that was not exactly well supported by the teams. But with SAFER, it's okay, we accept maybe to have a test. So this is where also we have space for innovations and to experiment.
In terms of the goal being to try and slow riders down, because I think you've quoted yourself that average speeds have been raised by about 1.8 kilometers per hour in the last few years, which is a lot. It feels, I think, to many people that I've spoken to, like the simple solution would be slow tyres that every rider from every team of a certain level above has to use, because A, you slow the teams and the riders down significantly. B, the riders have instantaneously more grip on the surface of the road. And C, they have more puncture resistance. As opposed to a maximum gear ratio or the height of socks, etc. Would that not be a much simpler solution to ensure that these riders are slowed down?
That could be one. So I don't know if we will succeed in reducing the speed, which is, in a competition, normally you want to go as fast as you can, but at least the goal is not to continue to increase on the same proportion, because when you increase, as you said, the average speed in the World Tour, the one day events from 1.8 km per hour over the last 5 years, you increase injuries by 25%. So it's not proportional. It's more it's more than this. So having said that, we believe that, of course, tires, it was probably the fastest gain over the last years with the tires. So there are 2 points. We are also ready, if it's a common request, to maybe have some test on this. The only thing we will be very careful is to have any kind of regulation that will help one provider instead of another, because we don't have to modify the market in a way, because that's not our job. There is providers. We have to respect their business. But however, yes, the size of the tire is one question, because on the past, when I was a young rider, we always tried to have the very narrow tires, 19, 20, and now sometimes it's 30, even 32 sometimes. So, and they gain a lot of watt with this and the speed. So, yes, this is one point that can be discussed. But what we try to do also with SAFER is to work collectively. It's not one family to take some decision, to impose to the other one. However, at the end, the UCI is always the final power to decide. Because sometimes we have to.
But maybe it needs to, no, because all of the teams
that could be one of the options.
The teams might say, well, we don't want to because we get money from Pirelli or Bontrager or whoever the tyre manufacturer is. And so maybe it needs the UCI to say, well, if you guys want to go slower, you're going to have slightly less sponsorship money, and we're going to work with a manufacturer to give you these tyres, and you're all going to use them.
But then that could be an option, but this is not the one. They are the agreement with the team is that we will not, go to impose one component, whether it's tires, tomorrow it can be brakes, because then we can also put them. We know also that receive also sponsorship through their the industry. And then we can also we can put them a little bit in trouble with this. So if we take a decision, it's maybe to say, okay, look, the maximum tire you can use is 27, or these kind of things. But it will apply to all the teams, but they will still be free to use the company they want. Because otherwise we'll have problems with the teams, we'll have problems with the industry. And it's not like Formula One when they have only one provider for all the tires.
That is something that FIA implemented, which was one tyre for all the drivers.
Yes, but it wasn't the case before. It's also part of this business model.
Now it is, but they obviously had their Ayrton Senna moment. Where,
exactly.
I don't know the sport inside out, but from what I've read, there were lots of people calling for the FIA to make significant changes for the safety of drivers. And it was only when one of the most famous drivers in the world lost his life that they then started to. And I think a lot of people are wondering, is that what the UCI is waiting for? Perhaps the names that have died are not quite big enough yet to make these really big changes.
Of course it's not at all, because as I said, the value of the life of all the riders is the same for us. So we don't make any difference in between the top rider and the other one. And we want to have a safe environment for all the riders. And we already took a lot of measures. We are not sleeping. We really took a lot of measures. But each time we take a measure, we are always challenged. Look at the handlebar. Of course, if you have narrow handlebar with a lever like this, you will gain in aerodynamics and you will go faster, and then you can have more accidents. So when we take a decision to reduce, to enlarge a little bit the minimum for the handlebar or the distance in between the two levers, then potentially the aerodynamic will be not as well as the one you have. So the consequences is that you will go a little bit not as fast as before, and it's good, I think, for safety. But believe me, that's not so easy, because we are always challenged. Some think it will be 38, some 40, some 42. Some are not discussing this, but the space in between the two levers. Yeah. So each time we have to. So we took the decision for this, even sometimes if it's not very popular. But we took the decision and we took our responsibilities. We also, what has been done for the fences. We all remember the crash of Groenewegen in the Tour of Poland, for example. So, taking lesson of this, we also
I think people might point to that as another example of that was a finish that I'd never heard the cycling professionals talk so much about one single finish, and that was the one. And again, it didn't change until there was an incident where one rider and then it changed. Yeah. And I think that's sometimes the problem that people have. But again, I think the public are quite. I understand the situation you're in. It's like any government, right? Yeah. Is that when things go wrong, people want somebody to blame. When things go right, they don't congratulate you as they should. So I want to say, I think most people watching this will also understand it's not an easy position to be in.
And the thing maybe I want to add, because a lot of fans, even the riders themselves, sometimes they believe that the UCI has the final approval of the circuit, of the parcours, of the. And this responsibility remains in the hand of the organisers. Of course, they have to be compliant with the rules, but it's not endorsed or there is no validation directly from the UCI on this. So we don't have a team having a look at. We study all the books or all the data as we received, and we make some recommendations. We have some time for modification, but there is not a formal approval. It remains responsibility of the organizer, and believe me, we also ask many modifications to some of them.
Okay. In terms of the recent statistics, that they don't look great, and that, to be honest, is one of the reasons that I'm making this video. There's been 6 riders that have died in a period of just over 2 years in UCI-ranked road races. Would you agree that that's a statistic that doesn't look very good for our sport right now?
Even one rider who will die is too many. Of course, we have to look into comparison with the with the past, but because there is always a lot of emotion, and it's completely normal. You don't take part in a race to die. we all know that we are not in a closed stadium, that there are more risk. When you are in descent of a mountain, you know there is more risk, that's for sure. However, it's each time how we can reduce the speed. If I take, unfortunately, the crash of Gino Mader, not far away from here, you can have a look. Say, look, the road was very, very large. Surface was very, very good. There were no obstacles directly, you know, and it happened. It's not also always easy to prevent all this accident. That for some of them can have big consequences. You know, when I'm informed of, it was in Portugal 2 weeks ago or last week or so, that we had a young talented junior who died also. That's always terrible. I always think to the parents, to the family, and I said, look, this guy this morning or Muriel Führer at the World Championship, she was at 2K from the house. She knows by heart the circuit. She was living at 2K, and she probably have been 200 times at this. And why this day she crashed? And each time is, what can we do to improve the safety? As an example, this was part of the tension in the Tour de Romandie this year. We said, look, nobody, in fact, I think that she was not in the race. And when we said, look, where is she? It took some time to. So now we tested to have the GPS trackers, not only for the data and TV, but if the GPS tracker is not moving for 30 seconds, there is a warning. Then you know, okay, maybe it's just stopped for natural reasons. But if it's for a crash, then you have a warning. Then you immediately can see. So new technologies can also bring, and we invest on this with our partners. So unfortunately, all the crash, we try to always take a lesson from all the crashes to improve safety. But yes, that's always a drama, and we always think to the family.
I'm trying to think of what our viewers would be asking in response to that. And I would imagine that quite a few of our viewers have done a Gran Fondo or a Sportive or a charity ride. I did a charity ride myself this year where I had a GPS tracker and my family could see where I was over the 350 kilometres the whole time. Yeah. So I guess their question might be, why are we still in 2025 in a position where we don't necessarily know where all the riders in a professional race are at any one time? Why is it not happening until now? Because I know it's happening at the World Championships this year.
No, in fact, it's sometimes more complicated like this, because you can potentially see where the rider is, but if the rider had a crash and if the GPS tracker will not move for 10 minutes, you don't have a warning today. Just know where the rider is. So then we had it also a system where if there is no move, you don't need to wait 10 minutes to say, okay, where is she or where is he? Then you need to have some device, and the technology is not as simple as just following where you are. It's just also to have to receive a warning when it's not moving. And also, what do you do?
I'm not sure you'd need technology. I think in the case of Muriel Führer specifically, her parents would have been keeping track, and I think this is the same for most families watching a race that their riders in. They would keep a track themselves. It's almost like the technology doesn't need to know whether they've stopped for 10. I mean, it'd be great if it did, but there'll be somebody out there that then warns the Swiss team manager or warns the pro team manager, my son, my husband, my daughter, whoever, their tracker hasn't moved. Can you tell me they're okay?
Yes, but and that's what we are working on. But that's more investment that a lot of people can imagine. Because yes, to know where your family, we want to be sure that every rider who will stop will have a warning. Because otherwise, okay, if you have your family following you, okay, nice, you will see, but then you will call who? in a race, what you will do. If it's a race from point city A to city B, how you go back, to what you do. So there are a lot of, when you enter into the details, how do we proceed exactly? It's not as simple as it can be. At least the technology provides wonderful tools today to address properly this case. We have also to see, okay, what do we do when they change the bikes? Because it happens also. Or you have crashes, you go back, where is the GPS tracker? So yes, we are working on this. This was also the reason.
Presumably the GPS tracker could be on the rider, just like a race radio.
Yes, that's also something else. Because on the rider, close to the body number and so on, that's probably also more simple that sometimes I've been thinking on the bike. So this is the reason why we had also the test in Tour of Normandy, is just to test all this. Then it will be mandatory and implemented for all the riders in Rwanda. But I guess in Rwanda, with 1 million people per day, if we lose one rider, we will probably see. But it's true that we were in extreme conditions in Zurich last year, with the weather that was awful, and nobody was at this point. Nobody was spectating the race, and she was probably just in between two groups alone. Mm-hmm. So the worst case scenario is always possible. And this is why the technology must, in this case, detect, but on a automatic basis, and nobody can be outside of the system. You can't only count on being lucky that somebody will follow you on. Then the race center must immediately receive a warning. Yeah. Okay, number 22, stop for 45 seconds. Can you have a look at this point?
In your press conference after Muriel Fura passed away at the UCI Worlds last year, I know you weren't able to comment directly because of the ongoing investigation. Yeah. I believe that's still the case now, that the investigation is ongoing.
Yes.
In that press conference, though, you referenced some of the safer data that pointed to around 50% of the crashes in pro cycling being down to the rider's fault. Presumably, we should be getting towards 100% of the crashes in pro cycling being the rider's fault, because that would mean that there's not crashes that are not the fault of the riders.
But I think on this, yes, it was around 50% was riders' behavior.
I think it's 29% of an individual rider's fault, but when you add in the other riders around, it's
then it's
around
50%. But the goal is to reduce what are the external reasons. For example, if you protect more obstacles, if you ensure that surface will be good, you have a lot of things that are in the hands of the organizers. And also, for example, if I take the yellow card, is also to improve riders' behavior. And sometimes I've been a cyclist also myself, not at highest level, but you are in a bunch. Sometimes you look at the right and something will go on the left, and yes, it can happen. We know that. We can't pretend that we will reduce this to 0%, because there will still be riders' behavior sometimes because they took
But I think my point is all crashes should be as a cause of rider behaviour, because what we're saying is that 50% at the moment are not because of riders. Yeah. So then it's not their fault. All crashes should be really their fault if they're in the correct environment for a race.
Yeah, but for example, if you have a puncture, if you are a puncture with your tire, it's not directly the rider's behavior. Yeah. But if it's in the descent, then you can crash, because it can happen, and it's not. Then you will still have punctures. And you will still sometimes potential crashes due to, it's an example, due to punctures. So I don't think of course, the goal is really to reduce this, and all all the elements where we have the leverage, the power to change things, we have to. And this is why we are putting a lot of pressure also on organizers for many things. However, what is more difficult today is also that more and more municipalities are, moving or making some adaptations on their roads to make them more peaceful, maybe for the cars or for pedestrian but it's not always the case for a bicycle race. Sometimes you had wonderful roads where we were used to have some races, and the year after the same road will be with many obstacles, but there is still no B plan to escape this road for this race. And then, you can even protect the obstacles, but it's better not to have the obstacles. And the organizer has no opportunity to sometimes to make some modification on this. So I'm very concerned by the multiplication over the last years about obstacles on the roads. And yes, you can see on many images that a lot of crashes are due to obstacles, not because they are not well indicated, not because they are not well protected, but just because at 50 km/h, even if it's well protected or well indicated, there is a wave in a bunch, and the first 10 will go through, and then you will touch the wheel of the guy in front of you. So it's not directly riders' behavior, but it's not directly the responsibility of the organizers. So sometimes organizers, they choose to change the circuit. As an example, in Montpellier, Tour de France, the same circuit, the same stage some years after, Christian Prudhomme told me they had to do 15K more because they had to change completely the way to enter Montpellier because it was too dangerous. So the organizers, they always also try to reduce the risk for riders. But it's also stressful sometimes for organizers. When you are I was an organizer of professional races also, you are happy to welcome everybody, but also happy when you're at the end of the race and that nothing happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we obviously, this is the other thing, we don't want to lose organisers because they have such a fear of how difficult and expensive it is to organise races. You're about to start a third term as UCI President, David. Maybe it goes on further than that, but let's say that you're finished in 4 years' time. What is the one thing from a safety point of view in road cycling that you would like to achieve in these next 4 years?
I would like to have less crashes. And of course, I will love that everybody continue to consider that it's our common goal. And that, yes, we continue to do a lot of investment to have more safety in road cycling, because we can never be satisfied when we have crashes and so on. So, yes, that's always terrible. So let's continue to push together.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Let me know your thoughts on what David had to say in the comments section below. Do you think the UCI should be doing more on safety, or are they simply the easy place to aim the blame when things go wrong? Thanks for watching.